Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Happy Friday to you. It's the last Friday of the rest of the year without a football game coming for the weekend. How about that? Both college and pro start up next week. We'll have the latest from NFL training camp and break it all down for you. Also, Sam McQuillan is in the house from Legal Sports Report. We'll break down some Major League Baseball action here on the program as well and get to the latest in sports betting and the very latest lines on this edition of NewsWire. But let's begin with a college football update that could potentially affect the way that players are paid in the future through the NIL, name and likeness program. President Trump is issuing an executive order in college sports that essentially will make it illegal for third parties to pay college football players to go play for their school. This would include alumnus of the school and everything else that goes along with it. The executive order aligns with major college sports conferences to regulate payments and regulate endorsements. And so basically, you can't come out of nowhere and decide that you want your favorite college football player to transfer for the school that you went to. It has to actually go through the school. Now, needless to say, this has not been instituted as of yet, but if it does, it could potentially go into effect for the next upcoming transfer portal and college football season. On the NFL practice field, got some good news after we led with some bad news yesterday. Justin Fields, a day after there were reports that he was carted off the field, was back at practice today. So he avoided a serious injury scare. His status for the first preseason game coming up in less than 2 weeks, unavailable right now. And needless to say, most starting quarterbacks don't play in that first preseason game as well. In case you missed it yesterday, the Las Vegas Raiders released Christian Wilkins, who they just signed to a free agent contract a year ago. He's been recovering from a Jones fracture, which he suffered in his left foot. And the NFLPA is now involved, saying that they're going to file a grievance, and he was not supposed to be released under this 50-day program from June 4th. He asked to file the grievance on his behalf, so the union did. And right now, it would appear that Wilkins feels like he's being treated unfairly, being released by the Raiders. Meanwhile, James Cook also feels like he's treated unfairly. He's the running back of the Buffalo Bills, but he has decided to report to training camp despite not having a new contract. Right now, Cook says that he is just doing what he has to do to be back in camp and told reporters yesterday, avoiding fines is the key.
It's my job. I got to participate so I won't get fined. And just come out here and just show them that I'm ready to go and earn what I got to go get.
Did you think about, what was your thought process, during the time between minicamp and training camp about participating?
I didn't really think about it. I knew I was going to come out here and work. I don't owe it to nobody but my teammates and myself and my family. So by me participating, showing my teammates that I love the game and I'm willing to be out here.
Do you also see it from a business standpoint, James, that doing this, being out here, the will that shows on your part to participate and be fully into it sends a good message and perhaps helps in your pursuit of what you want financially?
Yeah, it gave me a little leverage. Show them that I care about it and that I'm willing to do it and willing to come out here and participate and show my teammates that I'm willing to be out here and compete with them guys.
Cleveland Browns, of course, drafted 2 quarterbacks in the NFL draft, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. And it looks like there's a possibility that one of them will not be headed to the practice squad. It looks like the Browns want to keep all 4. Their general manager, Andrew Berry, met with the media yesterday saying there's a possibility that all 4 of the Browns quarterbacks, including Sanders and Gabriel, could open on the active roster.
On football, quarterbacks, do you see a pathway to have 4 on the opening day roster?
I do.
Is that, in light of the asset that a quarterback is, or having 69 with the practice squad, you can kind of hide?
I'd say this is we've largely looked at the last 5 spots for roster as more developmental spots, and that can come from any position. I also think with the roster flexibility nowadays, especially with the elevations that you're able to have on the practice squad, there's just more flexibility in terms of how to build your 48-man game day roster, where it's maybe not quite as restrictive in the past. Now, that being said, when roster rules were more, let's say, draconian, there have been teams that have carried 4. So if there are 4 that are 53-man worthy, and we think it makes the most sense for us to keep, then we will.
Major League Baseball's trade deadline is coming up next Thursday. This time last year, there were a ton of baseball trades. We finally got a trade yesterday in baseball with less than a week ago. Josh Naylor is headed to the Seattle Mariners from the Arizona Diamondbacks for a pitcher in return. It certainly does appear the Diamondbacks are looking toward next year. Josh Naylor traded from the Diamondbacks to the Seattle Mariners. We'll see what else Arizona decides to do in the coming week. All right, Julio Rodriguez, Randy Arozarena, Jorge Polanco all hit home runs. The Mariners beat the Angels by a final of 4-2. That headlines Major League Baseball yesterday. How about Luis Severino? Yeah, he'd like to get out of town too. He pitched 7 strong innings as the A's beat the Astros. Surprise result there. 7 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, and 8 strikeouts. Boy, the Padres have to figure out what to do with their rotation and Yu Darvish. 3 1/3, 8 runs for Yu Darvish. Hasn't looked like the same guy he has in the past. Cardinals end up winning the game 9-7. Ali Marmol said the fight in the team offensively late is what got them over the top.
Yeah, we needed it, especially after they punched early. To answer back in the first and then to be able to do what we did in the second was extremely important, especially coming off that road trip. You wanted to kind of come out a little stronger. We needed the offense to get going. I just love the fact that Donnie clears it with the homer, and then we reset and get a couple more guys on and then clear it again. That's not easy to do, especially against that group across the way. So solid offensive effort for sure. Yeah, it is, and I'm glad I'm able to do it here, man. I was just in the office. Someone else brought it up. It's just the one thing I think about is I like doing it with this group. I really do. We have a young core with some veterans sprinkled in. I like being able to go out there every day and compete with them. So I'm glad we were able to do it today. But that's what comes to mind when I think of that.
The Baltimore Orioles pick up a victory yesterday. There haven't been many for them this season, and not many wins for Charlie Morton, but he gets the win. 6 2/3 innings, and Baltimore beats Cleveland by a final of 4-3 yesterday. As I mentioned, it's been a tough season for Morton, especially in April, but he's come back stronger, could be a trade candidate as well. Happy after the game to go deep into a game.
I mean, I think as a starting pitcher, that's an opportunity. When a manager does that, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Tony and managers that do that have those conversations, that have, it's like they want to give you the chance to plead your case, or they genuinely just want you to go back out there and try to do it for yourself and the team. And I love that. I love that. That's probably one of my favorite things that I've experienced, other than that I've experienced in game. That's not on the field. Like that interaction with the manager where they truly they care. They care how you feel. They care about how it's going to make you feel if he pulls you or if they let you go back out there. So I'm really appreciative for that and for those conversations that we've had this year, because there's been a couple times where it was like he really honored and respected what I was thinking and feeling.
Now let's get to the WNBA results from yesterday. Still no Caitlin Clark for the Indiana Fever, but they do pick up a win thanks to Kelsey Mitchell. She had 21 points. Indiana beats Las Vegas. Final score 80-70. How about the game for Kelsey Plum yesterday? 30 points to lead the Sparks to their 4th straight win, 101-86 over the Sun. And also Skylar Diggins had 21 points as the Seattle Storm take care of the Chicago Sky by a final of 95-87. Coming up next on NewsWire, Bill Bender was at ACC Media Day, which means got a chance to visit with Bill Belichick. We'll get his thoughts on North Carolina's upcoming season next on NewsWire.
Shamar Stewart is having troubles before he even plays a snap. And he's seeing what's happened to the stars of this football team, by the way, right? The Higgins stuff wasn't super smooth. The Hendrickson stuff's not smooth.
But why pay him that big number where you've got Trey Henderson, who's an absolute superstar at edge? You always build a defense. Why haven't the Bengals been back to the Super Bowl in the last 4 years? It's real simple.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Y'all know where I'm going. And yeah, you can call it Nick bias all you want. I'm taking the Knicks to come out of the East. I look at this New York team and think that Mike Brown is an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. You may disagree. I don't care. I look at the fact of getting Yabusele and Clarkson off the bench is going to make the Knicks more dangerous.
Betting above the rim only on SportsGrid.
Your approach with Marion Hampton is if you're going to draft him aggressively and early, you better be patient because it might take half a season before he really takes over this backfield, and it might never happen this year, depending on how Harris performs. Gadsden and Disley so far not fantasy relevant at this time. Again, a more run-heavy offense. Hampton and Najee Harris, very intriguing, but the ADP, I think, on both of them is slightly off.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
Eric Skubal, another incredible performance. I mean, almost going 7-8 innings again, striking out a ton. I mean, I kind of felt like the Tigers really wanted that win.
There's a bit of narrative to it that people like to buy into, or, kind of, I don't want to say push a narrative, but the fact that he's doing what he did last year, but better, and is now in a spot to repeat, like, there's something to be said.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. College football right around the corner, and of course, media days going on all across the country. This week, it's the Atlantic Coast Conference's turn, and Bill Bender for Sporting News covering it and shares his thoughts with us on everything that he saw and heard. Bill, welcome back to NewsWire. Appreciate you coming on. Very, very highly anticipated press conference where you generally don't get much, but this time around, Bill Belichick, of course, with the University of North Carolina, and not with the New England Patriots. What did you make of the scene yesterday?
That it is. I've never been to an ACC media day where cameramen were lining up to watch a coach walk in to the podium session. And Bill Belichick, what we all have perceived, the hoodie, the Patriots, the short answers, completely different. He was friendly. He was congenial. He was taking great care to answer questions and about his learning experience in the college game. And, it's not coming with the fanfare and hype that Deion Sanders did. But I think sometimes we forget, like, as Bill O'Brien said, Bill Belichick can connect with coaches. He can connect with players. He knows more about football than most people on this planet. So it definitely raises the stakes and makes that opener against TCU a lot more interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like, going into this year is very similar to, like, going into Deion's season, where most people are watching those games to see how the coach prepares and wins or loses. But the deal, Bill, with this is that odds makers are telling us that North Carolina is going to still do a lot of losing this season. Just being honest, the odds show us that their win total is 7.5 going into the year. These can be off. I've seen it before, but that's not a high number. And if they win 10 games, Bill, for your $100 bet, you can pick up $600. So the odds are slowly stacked against Belichick going into the year. And you would think that you would get a little bit of a boost with a guy like Belichick there. What gives? Is North Carolina just not good?
I mean, the new roster, that is one thing. Can he win with these players? And can he, be the guy that we think he is, that I can beat you with yours and I can beat you with mine? And the schemes that he comes up with, he said they're running it like a pro program. September is so critical. They play TCU early in the season, obviously, in an opener that's going to get the Labor Day night treatment. They play UCF in September. They only have one ranked team on their schedule, though, in Clemson. So after that, if you look at the back half of their schedule, it is manageable for them to start reeling off wins if the Belichick aura, so to speak, works and they can win these games. But, it was wild to think at Clemson with a 2-time national champion and probably 3 first-round picks was probably less of the center of attention than North Carolina yesterday. That is the impact that he's making right now.
So let's get to some other news and notes from the ACC media days. And, certainly Brian Kelly told the media that the first game of the season is a really big one. And generally speaking, you don't hear Kelly do that. You haven't seen him do it with LSU or Notre Dame, but he acknowledged it. Also making the comment that Clemson is Death Valley Junior. So Dabo Swinney had a chance to either answer that or take the high road, Bill. What did he do?
He took the high road. He said, I'm just worried about the game and, and all the Dabo-isms and their players too. There wasn't this, we've got to go out and beat LSU in week 1 and making that game larger than it is. I think Dabo made an analogy that you could lose to LSU and it's a big deal and lose to Troy and it's a big deal. So they are taking the one game at a time. It's just another game, even though you and I, and they probably know behind closed doors, this isn't just another opponent coming into Death Valley. It's a huge game for both teams, and Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier, a lot of NFL talent going on in the field. I do think it's the most impactful game in week 1, even if Texas-Ohio State is the most watched and glamorous and most fun game in week 1.
Clemson, by the way, their win total is 9.5, and they are minus money to make the college football playoff. I would assume that Clemson's going to have a really good year. I felt like the momentum was building a little bit, Bill, last year.
They've got a good defensive line. Like I said, TJ Parker, you've got Cade Klubnik coming back as a 3-year starter, and Dabo raved on about him for about 2 minutes and how he's developed into this game changer at quarterback. They've got talent on both sides of the ball, and I think Dabo knows it. You can tell and be around him that this is a team not only capable of winning the ACC, but maybe making some noise in the college football playoff for the ACC, which would come at the right time. And, when he has that confidence, you can tell, and they've done it twice. And like you said, I think this is a really strong bet to win the conference, make the playoff, maybe make a run. Not sure they can win it all, but, they are one of the top 5, top 6 teams that does have a returning quarterback. That does make a difference.
All right, Bill, so let's end with the University of Miami, of course, the team that plays here where I am in South Florida. Going into last year, some high expectations. Met with Cam Ward. He was probably one of, if not the best quarterbacks to ever play at Miami. He's got to be in the conversation for, top 5. But, Bill, they still did not win with Cam Ward. So, I don't know what to say at this point. Their win total's 9.5. I know Beck is going to be their quarterback this year. But, if they didn't get to at least this, I thought last year if they didn't get to the semifinals of the college football playoff, it would be a disappointment. They didn't even come close to that. So how is their win total 9.5 again and a shot to win the conference? Do they legit have a shot?
I think they have a lot of talent, and it's a prove-it year for Carson Beck. He was kind of the main attraction of day 1. He answered questions about Georgia. He didn't seem bitter about how it ended there, seemed more appreciative. It comes to Miami, and Mario Cristobal said there is a marriage between what Beck does and what they want to do on the offensive side of the ball. I'll see it, believe it when I see it. That's how I approach Miami. They still haven't won that ACC championship. We can talk about playoff and national title and semifinals, Craig, when that school wins an ACC championship, which I'd never thought would be possible that they haven't at this point, given how long they've been in the league.
No, it is incredible, especially with them winning all those championships in the 2000s. I went to both of those, went to the title game they won to the one they lost. I thought, wow, this is going to be a juggernaut forever. Didn't turn out to be the case. All right, Bill, thanks for all the commentary from the ACC. Dive into some games next week. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Bill Bender from Sporting News here with us on NewsWire. We will take a quick time out here on the show. We'll get to the SportsGrid sound off. Also, Sam McQuillan on deck from Legal Sports Report. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. And we'll take a quick break. And after these messages, be right back. So don't go away.
Shamar Stewart is having troubles before he even plays a snap. And he's seeing what's happened to the stars of this football team, by the way, right? The Higgins stuff wasn't super smooth. The Hendrickson stuff's not smooth.
But why pay him that big number where you've got Trey Henderson, who's an absolute superstar at edge? You always build a defense. Why haven't the Bengals been back to the Super Bowl in the last 4 years? It's real simple.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Y'all know where I'm going. And yeah, you can call it Nick bias all you want. I'm taking the Knicks to come out of the East. I look at this New York team and think that Mike Brown is an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. You may disagree. I don't care. I look at the fact of getting Yabusele and Clarkson off the bench is going to make the Knicks more dangerous.
Betting above the rim only on SportsGrid.
Your approach with Marion Hampton is if you're going to draft him aggressively and early, you better be patient because it might take half a season before he really takes over this backfield, and it might never happen this year, depending on how Harris performs. Gadsden and Disley so far not fantasy relevant at this time. Again, a more run-heavy offense. Hampton and Najee Harris, very intriguing, but the ADP, I think, on both of them is slightly off.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
Eric Skubal, another incredible performance. I mean, almost going 7-8 innings again, striking out a ton. I mean, I kind of felt like the Tigers really wanted that win.
There's a bit of narrative to it that people like to buy into, or, kind of, I don't want to say push a narrative, but the fact that he's doing what he did last year, but better, and is now in a spot to repeat, like there's something to be said.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We'll get over to NFL training camps. Of course, they're back at it. Dallas Cowboys in California. Aaron Rodgers now has his new Pittsburgh Steelers helmet and jersey on at practice, too. We'll also hear from D'Amico Ryans in this edition of the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, let's start off in Dallas. Feels like we've been doing that all week long. Back to Oxnard, California we go. Of course, still waiting on a contract for Micah Parsons, waiting to see who steps up at running back for the Cowboys as well. Also waiting to see if Dak Prescott can have a healthier season than he had a year before. At training camp yesterday, Dak meeting with the media saying that intensity level is up and Cowboys getting ready to go.
I think it's a good thing. I don't think there's necessarily, maybe one of them we had some punches going, but other than that, it's football. It's high emotions. You got guys out here practicing and competing for their life, competing for jobs. You've got to have that edge. I think that's a difference. That's the difference right there is how passionate these guys are. They're being taught and being told to compete every day, and some guys compete different ways, right? And I think when you put that together at times, you're going to have those disagreements, you're going to have those frustrations, but they've been doing a good job of, for the most part, vibing each other up, looking in the face and realizing, okay, this is my teammate. I'm not going to take it there. And just as important as that, understanding that you can't take it there on game day either. So learning from it, controlling the emotions at the same time of being competitive. Coach says it all the time, we can be competitive without being combative. So I think it's a fine line, and I think we're flirting with it, and I think that's healthy.
Yeah, nobody wants to see fights at training camp, especially amongst their own teammates. But usually that happens after like a week or two. I don't know that it happens on like day 2 or anything like that, but shows you what the Cowboys are up to. All right, now what are the Pittsburgh Steelers up to? Man, do they look different going into training camp, right? Quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. Wide receiver is DK Metcalf, and they're more than just teammates apparently at this point. They're also staying with each other overnight in what they call a suite. Now, where this is on campus in the NFL, I'm not really sure, but here's Rodgers and that relationship budding between he and his star wide receiver.
Not actually way different. We were at the dorms at beautiful St. Norbert's College for 14 years, first 14 years of my career. And in those years, I had to go from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor. And finally, about year 6 or 7, I was on the 1st floor. So I'm on the first floor here, which is a good start. I got DK as my suite mate, so we're sharing a toilet and a shower. But I love this this idea, this opportunity to be out here in Latrobe and to stay here and connect with the guys.
Is that your choice to have DK as a suite mate, or is that a Mike Tomlin assignment?
No, I was surprised. I was here Tuesday night, and not many other guys were here other than the rookies. And when I got in the room, I realized we were sharing something, and I was secretly kind of hoping it wasn't a big lineman or something. Maybe somebody had, cared about their hygiene a little bit. So when I walked in, I saw like a standard suitcase. I said, "Oh, I think it's gonna be good. This is probably DK." So.
Good stuff from Aaron Rodgers. All right. Finally, Houston Texans, of course, under some fire this year. Got to do better than they did last year for sure. Here's D'Amico Ryans, not worried about last season or the season before.
For me, I understand very quickly about our first 2 years, like with the success that we had, like, yeah, it was great, but you have to forget that very quickly because to me, again, it doesn't predict, it doesn't really guarantee what's going to happen now. And every year, I tell our coaches, I tell our players this, every year the team changes. You're going to have some additions to your team each and every year. So it's all about how does that puzzle fit together? How quickly can we come together? Can we connect as a 2025 Texans? Like, I truly believe that. So if I'm harping on what we did in 24, that won't allow me to fully commit and fully dedicate myself to building this team, this roster in a manner that we need to be to go out and be great. And it'll be a growth process, right? We won't just – you don't just start off where you ended last year in the playoffs. There's a lot of work that goes into getting back to that moment. It's not just guaranteed to you. So how bad do these guys want it? How bad do our coaches want it? We got to put in the work to put ourselves in that position. It's going to be, one day at a time, one game at a time, and we'll see where we end up.
And by this time next week, we'll have our first preseason game of the year on tap. Let's take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, the latest daily fantasy sports in California, and also in terms of online casinos, is Ohio on board? Sam McQuillan answers those questions for us when we continue here on SportsGrid right after this quick break. Don't go away.
Shamar Stewart is having troubles before he even plays a snap. And he's seeing what's happened to the stars of this football team, by the way, right? The Higgins stuff wasn't super smooth. The Hendrickson stuff's not smooth.
But why pay him that big number where you've got Trey Henderson, who's an absolute superstar at edge? You always build a defense. Why haven't the Bengals been back to the Super Bowl in the last 4 years? It's real simple.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Y'all know where I'm going. And yeah, you can call it Nick bias all you want. I'm taking the Knicks to come out of the East. I look at this New York team and think that Mike Brown is an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. You may disagree. I don't care. I look at the fact of getting Yabusele and Clarkson off the bench is going to make the Knicks more dangerous.
Betting above the rim only on SportsGrid.
Your approach with Marion Hampton is if you're going to draft him aggressively and early, you better be patient because it might take half a season before he really takes over this backfield, and it might never happen this year, depending on how Harris performs. Gadsden and Disley so far not fantasy relevant at this time. Again, a more run-heavy offense. Hampton and Najee Harris, very intriguing, but the ADP, I think, on both of them is slightly off.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
Eric Skubal, another incredible performance. I mean, almost going 7-8 innings again, striking out a ton. I mean, I kind of felt like the Tigers really wanted that win.
There's a bit of narrative to it that people like to buy into, or, kind of, I don't want to say push a narrative, but the fact that he's doing what he did last year, but better, and is now in a spot to repeat, like, there's something to be said.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's bring in Sam McQuillan as we wrap up the week with our guest contributors from Legal Sports Report and get to the very latest going on across the country. Sam, welcome to the show. Great to have you back. Let's start off in California. They're in the news a lot for sort of taking a step back away from not just sports betting, but all of the other different elements that go along with it. Prediction markets and I guess daily fantasy is potentially the next one. I know, Sam, if I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, that Underdog was the one that was the most outspoken about this because a lot of their business came from comes from California's DFS industry. So I would guess that they're going to have to try to figure out some pivot if this happens.
Yeah, no, you're spot on with that assessment, Craig. Underdog was the only company that sued to stop this opinion from coming out from Attorney General Rob Bonta. It's been this thing, actually, that he's been working on or had been working on for the past 2 years. And lawmakers all the way back to 2015, 2016 had basically asked the Attorney General in the state, hey, we don't have, our law says that sports betting is not legal here. This thing called daily fantasy sports is existing. It sure looks a lot like sports betting to us. This is, of course, not a new argument we've heard in this space. They've asked the Attorney General to kind of figure out the law, interpret the law, and see what he thinks. Underdog sued to stop that opinion from coming out. The judge ruled that they couldn't do that, and the opinion came out anyway. So now the big question is, what's next? The Attorney General issued this opinion saying that companies like Underdog, Prize Picks, FanDuel, DraftKings, all offering fantasy sports, it's illegal and shouldn't be allowed. Those companies have not exited the state. They're very much still there. Now, Underdog and Prize Picks did change the mechanism of their games, which we talked about a few weeks ago, from player versus house to peer fantasy, which has satisfied concerns in other states, but it remains to be seen whether that will satisfy concerns in California. If I had to bet on it, I wouldn't think so, because the opinion itself talks about all forms of daily fantasy sports, not just how the mechanism is. But again, back to what is actually going to happen here. Bonta came out this week and said, oh yeah, I fully intend to enforce this opinion. I didn't just issue this opinion for fun, but we really don't know what enforcement looks like here. We've had attorney generals in states like Texas come out with opinions and then not be able to enforce them. We actually had the judge in the lawsuit that Underdog filed to stop this from coming out say that, okay, the attorney general can't really do anything or change the law here. It's non-binding. It doesn't carry the weight of a law, suggesting that maybe there would need to be a law put in place to kind of codify this interpretation. Now, he could send cease and desists. Those companies might not comply with them. But again, California, huge state, like you mentioned, for these fantasy sports companies. We haven't seen them exit the state after this opinion like they did in other places like Wyoming, where they kind of just said, okay, it's not worth, it's not worth it for us. Again, the state without sports betting. So it's a huge business for these, pick'em fantasy companies as well. And kind of underneath this whole thing is why the opinion came out now, why this fight is going on. Bonta is running for re-election in 2026. And campaign records show that $70,000 was donated from tribal gaming groups to his campaign. Tribal gaming groups obviously really want fantasy sports or daily fantasy sports companies out of the state, as they also see them like illegal forms of sports betting, which is infringing on their rights. They've been instrumental in the prediction markets battle as well, filing a lawsuit earlier this week that would kind of get these sports betting, quasi-sports betting industries out of the state. So it's going to be a really interesting political fight we're talking about here with the AG, with the tribal groups, with FanDuel, DraftKings, their fantasy providers, and then prediction markets baked in as well. It's quite a mess in California right now.
Yeah, it will be one of the stories we follow in the fall. All right, so now I need some explanation here, even though I did read a little bit about this. So, Sam, I feel like Kalshi is the company that's made the most news of all the companies in the space this year. And now they have a new deal with X, formerly known as Twitter, for use of AI. But how would they incorporate this in terms of their prediction markets? I need a little bit more of an understanding.
Yeah, Kalshi just announced his partnership with X, which centers on using Grok, the AI chatbot that is on X. A lot of times people will tweet something and then ask at Grok what's going on here, or can you clarify? And there's actually been a lot of, AI isn't perfect. There's been a lot of kind of discourse about, it leading us the wrong way, or it making mistakes, not being able to read people's, humor or sarcasm or intent. But here, what Kalshi is going to try to do with this partnership is use Grok and use the AI capabilities to basically scrape the social media platform, because it specializes in everything that's posted on there, all the posts that people make on there, to help guide trades that people make in kind of quicker, realer time. So think of it as, if you're trying to invest in something, a stock, and you want to do research, they're kind of trying to peddle it here with prediction markets. We can just see what the sentiment is online about it, because a lot of the times, especially with non-sports prediction markets, whether you're talking about the election or betting on the weather or Oscars, a lot of the way those markets move is really just influenced by what the public sentiment is of the market, what people are posting about, what people are talking about. We certainly see stocks rally that way. So this is a different partnership than Polymarket just announced a few weeks ago. They're also partnering with X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. That partnership is more about putting Polymarket's odds or market insights out there onto the social media platform to get kind of in front of eyeballs. Think of it more as a marketing partnership. And this is really more tech-based, where Kalshi wants to supplement their product, which has been criticized by sports books and other more legit gambling companies that have been asked, are you concerned about these sports prediction markets? They've kind of said, well, their tech really isn't that great. It's kind of just, you buy something, you sell something. It's not, doesn't move quick in real time. So this is just another example of, Kalshi trying to expand in a very short amount of time. Remember, we've only had sports prediction markets since about like January or February. True. But already these companies have hit, a $2 billion valuation, mostly because of these markets, which now make up, 40 out of the 41 most traded of all time. So for me, this is a signal that more money is being poured into this, this industry, which has gone just largely unchecked. The CFTC has not weighed in. Multiple states have filed lawsuits. Tribes have filed lawsuits trying to stop this. And in the meantime, I think companies are seeing it as a real opportunity to make a lot of money very quickly, especially for Kalshi and now Polymarket as well. Now it's going to re-enter the U.S.
Interesting stuff there from Grok. Yeah, I know what you're talking about there on social media. Some people hit me up with that too. Okay, so let's close out our week, Sam, with the state of Ohio. Online casinos being proposed, but it seems like no progress making on that front, is there?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It's more into the political kind of back dealings. The governor in Ohio, Mike DeWine, has been a huge advocate of raising sports betting taxes lately. He signed sports betting into law just a few years ago, doubled the tax rate, and wants to double it again. He actually wasn't able to double that tax rate again to 40%. And now he came out this week saying that he's against online casino expansion, against legalizing iGaming in Ohio. iGaming, of course, is the real end game for sports betting companies. They want to acquire people as sports bettors and eventually convert them over to blackjack and, online slots players, just because the margins are so much higher in casino games than they are in sports betting. Over this past year, we talked about how crazy it was that the public won so often in sports betting. That doesn't really happen in blackjack or slots. It's, much higher margins than, betting on the NFL or something like that. So for me, I'm kind of seeing this as a bargaining chip. Mike DeWine didn't get what he wanted in terms of raising the sports betting taxes. The legislature wasn't on his side. And those same groups that were fighting to have that not happen are the same ones that obviously want to expand to online casinos. So he's talked about concerns about, addiction, putting phones in people's pockets. I'm a little more dubious of that. He did sign online sports betting into law because, you now have sports books in your pockets. I don't really see a huge difference in adding a casino into someone's pockets from a political standpoint, at least. So for me, this seems to be about, I didn't get sports betting taxes raised, and now I want to kind of block this. And hopefully we don't see this trickle all down to the bettors at the end of the day. We've certainly seen that happen in Illinois with the surcharges and the minimum bet fees. So it's going to be one to watch in Ohio, but again, a really big state. So some important news there.
All right, Sam. Great stuff. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you back here next week on NewsWire.
You too. Thanks, Craig.
All right, coming up next, Bob Donaldson of Underdog joins us to go over today's baseball slate. Big matchup between the Dodgers and Red Sox. What happens to the next one?
Shamar Stewart is having troubles before he even plays a snap. And he's seeing what's happened to the stars of this football team, by the way, right? The Higgins stuff wasn't super smooth. The Hendrickson stuff's not smooth.
But why pay him that big number where you've got Trey Henderson, who's an absolute superstar at edge? You always build a defense. Why haven't the Bengals been back to the Super Bowl in the last 4 years? It's real simple.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Y'all know where I'm going. And yeah, you can call it Nick bias all you want. I'm taking the Knicks to come out of the East. I look at this New York team and think that Mike Brown is an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. You may disagree. I don't care. I look at the fact of getting Yabusele and Clarkson off the bench is going to make the Knicks more dangerous.
Betting above the rim only on SportsGrid.
Your approach with Marion Hampton is if you're going to draft him aggressively and early, you better be patient because it might take half a season before he really takes over this backfield, and it might never happen this year, depending on how Harris performs. Gadsden and Disley so far not fantasy relevant at this time. Again, a more run-heavy offense. Hampton and Najee Harris, very intriguing, but the ADP, I think, on both of them is slightly off.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Eric Skubal, another incredible performance. I mean, almost going 7-8 innings again, striking out a ton. I mean, I kind of felt like the Tigers really wanted that win.
There's a bit of narrative to it that people like to buy into, or, kind of, I don't want to say push a narrative, but the fact that he's doing what he did last year, but better, and is now in a spot to repeat, like, there's something to be said.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. Rob Donaldson is with us from Underdog to go over the very latest in Major League Baseball, and we do have some great matchups this weekend, and we're going to get right to them. Rob, thanks for coming on here on this Friday. We'll all be busy watching the Dodgers take on the Red Sox this weekend, one of the premier matchups, I think, maybe of the season in baseball, a rematch, of course, of the World Series in 2018. Let's start off with tonight's game. We'll get right to it here. It is LA a slight favorite on the road against Boston. We've seen some of the pricing on the Dodgers be pulled back a little bit. They haven't played as well in July as they had throughout the season. Emmett Sheehan is back pitching for the Dodgers again. He's now in their rotation. Bayo's been great for Boston, but, naturally you can't make any team a huge favorite against the Dodgers tonight. Any opinion on this one as we get started with this marquee showdown?
Yeah, right now I kind of feel like the Dodgers are a little bit of a shell of themselves, similarly to the Tigers. And what this really is going to speak to is probably at the deadline, we're going to see the Dodgers try to go out there and be your super aggressive or hyper aggressive. And on the other side, you have a team in the Red Sox who are trying to convince their front office that they need to be buyers. And this probably ends up just being a team that kind of like tentatively buys or just sits on their hands. But hey, if they show out against the Dodgers in this series, maybe that's a convincing enough statement to say, hey, let's go ahead and make a run at this thing.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and this weekend probably will state a lot toward that. In fact, it's funny that Saturday's game has the big names, but, Boston's going to be a big favorite Saturday with Garrett Crochet. Clayton Kershaw, who was really upset after his last start, will pitch Saturday, and then on Sunday you have Dustin May facing off against good old buddy Walker Buehler, of course, who used to pitch for the Dodgers for many years. By the way, opinion on any of these four odds that I'm going to show you here? This is just the series here. Those are the pitchers. Vinny, let's take it to the series. The Dodgers minus 122, Red Sox plus 100, Dodgers sweep plus 630, Red Sox sweep plus 680. I'm not asking you, Rob, to bet any of them, but if you had to, do you like any of those four options?
I feel like, again, when you're talking about the Dodgers right now, they're a little bit more name brand value than they are actual performance. And I get it. They built up a lot of wins. They have a crazy good lineup, and they're going to be rolling out some names on the bump that a lot of people typically like to back. But I think the Red Sox are going to have a definitive edge in most of these games, even tonight as well. And because of that, a plus 680 on the sweep, we've seen crazier things. We've seen the Pirates go out to LA and sweep the Dodgers even when they were in their World Series mode. So I wouldn't put it past the Red Sox, and I do think they end up winning this series.
All right, and then the other matchup this weekend, the Interleague Showdown, and could it be a World Series preview? I don't know. Yankees fans probably not feeling like that right now, but the Yankees are minus 150 on the line tonight, High total, by the way, 9.5. Probably the starters have something to do with that. Taiwan Walker starts for Philadelphia, and Will Warren, who my guess is will end up getting replaced by somebody else the Yankees get next week. That's probably a guess. So he's probably going to have a good start tonight in order to keep his spot.
Yeah, the Yankees are kind of rolling out a lot of different young arms right now, just hoping they can catch lightning in a bottle with somebody. And the reality is, the Yankees are probably going to add 3 rotation arms in the next week or so here. And Will Warren has kind of been the reason as to why they're going to be so aggressive, because he started off the season really, really strong in terms of the strikeouts were there, the limiting of the runs earned, and then there was a series against the Dodgers where everything just kind of fell off the wagon, and he hasn't ever really recovered since then. When you are looking at the Phillies, I think they're playing better baseball right now, and the fact that they are a plus money dog, give me them all day. I think they win this one, and I think they could win it pretty convincingly.
All right, so maybe you'll feel the same way about Saturday's games and Sunday's games. The pitching matchups. I mean, really, the primary one is Sunday when you take a look at it, because you have Zach Wheeler going up against Rodon. I mean, that's just a monster game. So, and then there's Saturdays too. Suarez banged up his last time out. Here are the odds to win this little series here this weekend. It's about a coin flip, Rob, on who wins it. -105, -115. And sweep is kind of a long shot here. I really don't love these sweep odds. I mean, Rob, don't you think that, I mean, these teams are going to win a game at least a piece, no?
Yeah, the offenses are humming too well right now for them to kind of have this like a totally bad series out of nowhere. And I do think when you're talking about who wins a series, it's kind of the same sentiment where I'd rather bet on like total runs scored if that was like a random prop that got thrown up in a series, because I do think there's going to be a lot of runs, even in that Sunday game with Wheeler and Rodon. Both of those guys have been allowing a lot of hard contact as of late, and if we do see something like a 6.5 or a 7 over under, I'm going to be actually riding the over in that game.
Okay, fair enough. Real quick, let's show the odds to win American League MVP. Rob, before we get to the Mets-Giants game, I'll give you 30 seconds to make a case for anybody else except Judge. These numbers for Judge just keep climbing. He's 650 now.
Yeah, I can't get there, man. And unfortunately, Cal Raleigh did have a moment where, you know, the Seattle Mariners traveled to the Bronx and he could have really showed up and showed out. And I think optically, when you're all talking about like awards and the futures in that department, it's a definite popularity contest. You have to kind of play to that strength when you are eyeing these long shot odds. And I think Cal Raleigh kind of lost optically in that series where they just kind of got flattened by the Yankees.
All right, finally, Mets and Giants squaring off in San Francisco. Only time this year the Mets will visit there. Low total, Giants can't score. That's the key here. Logan Webb will score for the Giants, Clay Holmes for the Mets. I know the Giants have at least, you know, sort of getting back into the picture here a little bit, but they kind of hurt themselves, Rob, over the last week, losing as many as they did.
Yeah, this Giants offense is basically what the Mariners issue has been over the past 3 years. Great pitching, can't hit, and for Logan Webb, man, he's been getting touched up as of late as well, giving up a lot of hard contact, and it's materializing in runs allowed as well. I feel like the Mets should be a definitive favorite in this game here tonight, and because of the Logan Webb name brand, I think we're getting a really good price on the Mets here, even with Clay Holmes on the bump. So, yeah, give me the Mets and maybe even ladder a run line with that side as well.
Yeah, you think the Giants is still in this thing, Rob? I mean, I don't know. I mean, they kind of went all in already by getting Devers, but I mean, maybe with Arizona punting, it gives them a better shot. That's the only good news I would have here.
Yeah, they might be picking up the scraps at this deadline in terms of the offensive side and just kind of hoping they can catch lightning in a bottle with some of these other players that have been underperforming. But yeah, to your point, this is definitely not one of the more aggressive buyers, even after that Devers trade at this point.
All right, Rob, great stuff. As always, have a great weekend. Enjoy the baseball. We'll see you next week. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back to wrap it up.
Shamar Stewart is having troubles before he even plays a snap. And he's seeing what's happened to the stars of this football team, by the way, right? The Higgins stuff wasn't super smooth. The Hendrickson stuff's not smooth.
But why pay him that big number where you've got Trey Henderson, who's an absolute superstar at edge? You always build a defense. Why haven't the Bengals been back to the Super Bowl in the last 4 years? It's real simple.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Y'all know where I'm going. And yeah, you can call it Nick bias all you want. I'm taking the Knicks to come out of the East. I look at this New York team and think that Mike Brown is an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. You may disagree. I don't care. I look at the fact of getting Yabusele and Clarkson off the bench is going to make the Knicks more dangerous.
Betting above the rim only on SportsGrid.
Your approach with Marion Hampton is if you're going to draft him aggressively and early, you better be patient because it might take half a season before he really takes over this backfield, and it might never happen this year, depending on how Harris performs. Gadsden and Disley so far not fantasy relevant at this time. Again, a more run-heavy offense. Hampton and Najee Harris, very intriguing, but the ADP, I think, on both of them is slightly off.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
Eric Skubal, another incredible performance. I mean, almost going 7-8 innings again, striking out a ton. I mean, I kind of felt like the Tigers really wanted that win.
There's a bit of narrative to it that people like to buy into, or, kind of, I don't want to say push a narrative, but the fact that he's doing what he did last year, but better, and is now in a spot to repeat, like there's something to be said.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got last licks coming up before we wrap up our week. Having been to Cooperstown last month, I certainly can sympathize with CC Sabathia trying to get to Cooperstown yesterday. We'll talk about that. Also, a movie comes out tonight that will have a lot of people streaming, and addition, a resolution in the case of the bat flip. If you're not aware, I'll update you. Time now for some last licks. In case you missed yesterday's show, you may have heard that there was a Little Leaguer getting ready to play for a championship in New Jersey that was suspended. He was suspended for hitting a home run, and according to the rules that they had set before the tournament they were playing in, bat flipping was not allowed. The kid hit the home run, he was bat flipped, and then he bat flipped and then suspended, but the parents in New Jersey ended up appealing and looking for a quick answer. They got one. And cooler heads have prevailed. This young man is going to be able to participate in this summer tournament in New Jersey. I think they call it some sort of like Little League World Series of New Jersey, of New York, or something like that. Look, in the end, I understand it. You want to set a good example. I saw it in Cooperstown myself all week long when I was there. My son did it, talked about it yesterday here on the show. I think we aired it here on SportsGrid too. But look, I mean, in the end, you can't let the kid not play if he's that good. And not only that, if you got to know the character of the kid too. Good news, they're going to let this kid play in the last game. But look, if they say you can't bat flip, just try not to do it. But who am I to talk? My son did it. Kind of. Okay, CC Sabathia is going to be, headed to the Hall of Fame this weekend. It's a very big, of course, weekend. Ichiro Suzuki is going in the Hall of Fame too. The induction for Dick Allen as well. Going to be great. This is one of my favorite days of the year, and I saw all the Hall of Famers that are going back to Cooperstown, to the Hall of Fame, where I just was. So this is super cool. The bad news is for CC Sabathia is while he was on one of these winding highways, and there are from Albany to Cooperstown, New York, it's like kind of an insane way to get there. Like, I mean, those of you who live in the area, maybe you're thinking no, but for me, it was a little scary going down these back roads, definitely country. And CC just broke down in his car on the way there and went on social media with all his family and said, hey, we are broken down. We need a ride to Cooperstown. But in the end, somebody ended up helping. I'm curious how this ended up happening and how he ended up getting there, because when I went to Cooperstown, I got a flat tire in Cooperstown, and I had to drive on a spare to replace it about 35 minutes just to find a place to do it. So I get it. It's that kind of place. But good news is that you'll see CC on Sunday. Finally, you'll see a streaming video tonight of one of the more popular sports comedy movies of all time. It is here. Adam Sandler's Happy Gilmore 2 is already out. It was released on Netflix last night or this morning at 3 a.m. Lots of cameos. I'm trying to stay away from social media. This is one of the few things that I really want to see, and my guess is I am within 24 hours of watching it. Happy Gilmore, one of the great Adam Sandler movies. He announced a couple of years ago that he was going to be doing another one. A lot of great cameos from what I see in this as well. But you know what? I'm actually, I hate to admit it, that I'm also equally excited next week. I may have to go to the theater for this one to see The Naked Gun. When I was younger and those Naked Gun movies came out, 1, 2, and 3, you probably don't even know what I'm talking about. I was at all 3 of those in the movies, had them all on VHS and then DVD. So I am also curious to see that comedy next week with Liam Neeson starring in that one. All right, that will do it for our shows and our week of shows today. Quick programming reminder for tomorrow morning. You can catch me and George Kurtz on a really full out all fantasy football episode of Fantasy Sports Today. As training camps open, we're going to go through all of the different positional rankings and all of the players that you can get into in fantasy football. So get ready for that. Also, Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker, they host the Sunday morning edition of Fantasy Sports Today as well. Also, a quick reminder, you can download the SportsGrid app and stream our shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just take out your phone and scan that QR code right there. Available for iOS and Android. It is the SportsGrid app. Tells you all the news, notes, information, and also scheduling here on our shows as well. So make sure you check it out, and you'll be much better off using that as your second screen going into any sporting event that you're watching live this weekend or in the future. In addition, thanks to our guests from coming on the show today, Rob Donaldson, and thanks to Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report, also Bill Bender from Sporting News. Thanks to Vinny for filling in today. Great to catch up with Vinny. And for Frank, my producer, I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back here Monday morning for our next edition of NewsWire. Until then, have a great weekend.
My mind, I was able to think and process. And if I let him get back up, he's going to get back up. I was like, let me finish this right now. And I caught him with that left hook, and then I caught him again with that right hook just to make sure the job was done, because I was calculating his hands wasn't touching the ground and his knees weren't touching the ground, but I know he was still going down. To make sure he wasn't getting back up, I had to let those last 2 off, man.
Combat Sports Report. Only on SportsGrid.
He's just only 2,300 points behind. So even if he does win at Memphis, he's still going to be behind Scottie Scheffler in the points by 300. So why? I mean, I want Scottie Scheffler to show up in Memphis, but does he need to? If Rory's not showing up and the third place guy, even if he wins, isn't going to pass him?
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
What do you make of the season that Barkley had last year as he piled on the yards to get over 2,000, and what can that look like this year?
His year could have been much better with different circumstances here. So he was great. I assume he'll be great again. You want to take Jahmyr Gibbs? I don't have an issue with it, but, Barkley, yeah, you're going to lose the tush push.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Big Fish is the best player in the WNBA. She is running away with the MVP award. Why is that? Caitlin Clark, injured. Asia Wilson, not playing at Asia Wilson level, but it's more about the fact about what's around her has been an issue. So to me, Fish is almost like the MVP because everyone else has gone down in some way, shape, or form.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.